Welcome to Stillwater Chronicles. Tonight, we settle into a story about a therapist whose notes remember more than she does. There is something about the end of a working week that slows the world down. Not stops it, just slows it, like a river reaching wider ground. The current still there, still moving, but no longer in a hurry to be anywhere. Friday evenings in a therapy practice have a particular quality to them. The building empties floor by floor. Footsteps in the corridor gradually thin to silence. And then there is only the low hum of the heating, the occasional creak of the structure settling into itself, and the soft amber light of a room that is held across the week, more feeling than most rooms ever do. This is where we find Dr. Fiona. She is sitting in her chair, not the patient's chair, the other one, the one she always sits in, positioned at a slight angle to the window, so that on clear evenings she can see the rooftops of Edinburgh stretching away in slate and shadow. It is that kind of evening now. The sky has gone the color of pewter. The chimneys stand in rows like quiet sentinels. Below somewhere, the city is still in motion. Taxis, voices, the faint bleat of music from a pub down the hill. But up here, on the third floor, it is very still. She has a cup of tea. It has gone cold. She has not noticed. In her lap is a folder, a plain manila folder, the kind she uses for every patient, neutral, unremarkable, a small rectangle of order in a profession that deals so often in disorder. She holds it with both hands, loosely, the way you hold something when you are not yet ready to open it, but cannot quite set it down. She has been sitting like this for several minutes. The folder is labeled, in her own handwriting, simply, M. She does not remember a patient named M. This, she tells herself, is not unusual. She has been in practice for 11 years. She has seen hundreds of patients, more if she counts the early years, the training placements, the community clinic work she did in her late 20s, when she was still figuring out what kind of therapist she wanted to be. Names blur, faces blur. That is natural. That is, if anything, a sign of a healthy boundary between self and work. But the folder is thick, and when she opens it, which she does now, slowly, as the last of the daylight fades from the rooftops outside, she finds 12 sets of session notes. 12. All in her handwriting. She stares at the first page. Session 1. The date is 9 months ago. She reads her own words, the careful, considered language she was trained in, the phrases she uses when she is trying to capture something fragile without breaking it, by touching it too directly. The patient, M, presented with feelings of disconnection, of being, as she had apparently written, slightly outside their own life, watching it rather than living it, present in rooms but not quite in them. The kind of thing she has heard before in various forms, in this very chair, in this very room. She reads on. Session 2, Session 3, each one detailed, precise, the kind of notes she is proud of, the kind that capture not just what was said but the texture of the session, the pauses, the moments when something shifted in the room. Her notes have always been thorough. Colleagues have commented on this. It is a quality she developed early and has maintained carefully, because she believes that the notes are a form of witnessing, a record that says, "You were here. This mattered. Someone was paying attention." She turns the pages slowly. By session 5, M is described as beginning to open up. By session 7, there are references to childhood, to a house that was always too quiet, to a mother who moved through rooms like she was trying not to leave footprints. By session 9, Fiona's notes describe what she calls a significant breakthrough, though she cannot recall what it felt like to be in the room when it happened, cannot recall M's face as the words came out, cannot recall whether M cried, or went quiet, or looked out the window. She cannot recall any of it. And yet the notes are so specific, so present, so entirely like herself. She gets up. She moves to the desk, a small thing against the far wall, between the bookshelf and the door, stacked with the modest administration of her practice. She opens the drawer where she keeps her appointment diary. She looks through it. There is no M. There are patients on Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons. There is a note about a canceled session in March that she never rescheduled. There is a reminder to call her supervision group about rearranging their May meeting. There's, in short, the ordinary, accounted for texture of her professional life across the past 9 months. There is no M, no name, no appointment slot, no trace. She goes back to her chair. The room is darker now. She should turn on a light. She does not turn on a light. She picks up the folder again and turns to the final page. Session 12. The date is 2 weeks ago. A Tuesday, which is possible. She does sometimes run sessions on Tuesdays. The notes are, like all the others, written in her own careful hand. They describe a patient who has, over the course of their time together, undergone what Fiona has written as a quiet but meaningful transformation. The disconnection that brought M to therapy in the first place has, the notes suggest, resolved. Not dramatically. Not in a way that would make for a tidy ending in a film, but in the way real resolutions tend to happen. Gradually, incompletely, and with a certain amount of grief for the person you were before the change. She reads the final paragraph, and then she reads it again. Patient reports significant progress, states they no longer need to be remembered. She sits with these words for a long time. The city outside has gone fully dark. The rooftops are now just shapes, angles of deeper shadow against the gray sky. The heating hum has settled into something lower, almost imperceptible, the kind of sound that only becomes audible once you have already stopped noticing it. Somewhere in the building, a door opens and closes. Footsteps cross a floor below her. Then nothing. Fiona is very good at sitting with things. It is perhaps the most essential skill in her profession. The ability to remain present with material that is uncomfortable without immediately trying to resolve or explain it away. She has sat with grief and with rage, and with a particular kind of shame that has no name and no clear origin, and still somehow fills an entire room. She knows how to hold space. She holds space now, and in the space she finds herself going back through the notes more carefully. Not reading, she has read them, but looking for something at the edges of the language. Some phrase, some detail, some small thing she might have missed that would explain the gap. By session 4, M had described a recurring image, a room with yellow wallpaper, the pattern worn almost to nothing in certain patches, a room from childhood, a room that felt, M had said, like a place where things were put away rather than resolved. Fiona reads this and goes still. She grew up in a house with yellow wallpaper. She had not thought about it in years. Decades, perhaps. It was the back bedroom, the one that had been her room until her sister was born. And then it became her sister's room, and she moved to the smaller one at the front of the house that looked out onto the road. She had not liked the yellow wallpaper especially. It was the color of old mustard, a bit faded even when she was small. But she had forgotten it entirely until this moment. This sentence, this note, she apparently wrote 9 months ago about a patient she cannot remember. She tells herself, this is coincidence. She turns back to session 7. The mother who moved through rooms like she was trying not to leave footprints. Fiona's mother had been like that. Quiet, contained, present in the house but somehow not quite in it. Like a figure in the background of a photograph who doesn't know they've been captured. Fiona had spent a great deal of her own therapy, years ago, trying to articulate what her mother's particular quality of absence had felt like. She had never quite found the words for it. And yet here, in notes she wrote about a patient she cannot place, she finds, without looking for it, without having known it was there, almost exactly the right ones. She closes the folder. She opens it again. She looks at M's name on the cover. Just the single letter, which she now realizes she should have questioned at the time. Should have ensured she had a full name and contact details and an intake form, and all the administrative scaffolding that surrounds the therapeutic relationship. None of that exists. There is only the folder, only the notes, only the 12 sessions of careful, detailed, intimate work with someone whose face she cannot find anywhere in her memory. And then, quietly, the thought arrives. She does not invite it. She does not pursue it. It simply comes, the way certain thoughts do in the late evening, in quiet rooms, when the ordinary noise of the day has dropped away, and what is left is something more fundamental, something that has been waiting patiently for the right moment. What if M is not a patient she has forgotten? What if M was never quite there in the way that would leave a trace? She stays with this. She stays with it in the way she has learned to stay with the uncomfortable things, neither pushing it away nor pulling it closer, just letting it be present in the room alongside her, the way a patient sits in the other chair. Real enough to change the quality of the air. Real enough to be felt, but not yet named. The notes are real. The handwriting is hers. The observations are ones only she could have made, not just professionally, but personally, in the specific texture of how she sees, how she listens, what she notices. These notes were not written by a stranger, but M, whoever, whatever M was, has left no other mark, no appointment, no intake form, no email correspondence in her inbox, no name in the diary, just 12 weeks of careful, intimate work, culminating in a last line that does not quite sound like something a patient says when therapy has simply run its natural course. no longer need to be remembered. She looks at the two chairs in the room, her chair and the other one, the patient's chair, the one positioned slightly toward her, slightly toward the window, so that whoever sits in it has the option of looking at her or looking away at the soft Edinburgh gray outside. The chair is empty. The small cushion on it is undisturbed. The box of tissues on the side table beside it has not been touched, or if it has, she cannot see the evidence. She thinks about the word she used in session 9, breakthrough. She thinks about what it might mean to break through something, to pass from one state to another, to become something the previous version of yourself no longer quite contains. She thinks about progress. She thinks about what it would feel like to have worked, carefully and over time, toward a state in which you are no longer something that needs to be held in anyone's memory, to have moved so completely through the aperture of change that the light no longer bends around you, to have become, in some sense, resolved. She is not sure if this is frightening. She is not sure if frightening is the right word. She closes the folder one more time. She sets it on the side table, the one beside the patient's chair, the one with the tissues. She looks at it for a moment, and then she looks away, out at the dark slate rooftops, and the pewter sky, and the distant yellow squares of lit windows, where other people are sitting in their Friday evening rooms, going about the quiet business of existing. She picks up her cold cup of tea. She drinks it anyway. It tastes of nothing in particular. She will look again on Monday. She will check the notes more carefully. She will look for M in the older files, in the archival records she keeps in the cabinet under the window. She will speak to her supervision group. She will find a rational account for 12 sessions she cannot remember, with a patient she cannot place. But that is Monday, and this is now. And now is a Friday evening on the 3rd floor of a building in Edinburgh. And the room is warm and still, and outside the rooftops are going dark one by one. And somewhere in the building below her, a last set of footsteps is making its way toward the exit. And on the side table beside the empty patient's chair, the folder labeled M sits in the amber light, patient as everything she has learned to sit with, waiting for nothing, needing nothing, already, in its own quiet way, complete. Thank you for listening to Stillwater Chronicles, where even the quietest rooms can hold more than they seem. If this stillness stayed with you, if the amber light of that 3rd floor room settled somewhere inside you, then let it remain a little while longer. Some things, after all, do not need to be remembered to be real. They only need to have been felt. Rest now. The night will keep your secrets.